All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Definitely. Always up for a good philosophical exploration.
Well, today we're tackling Ayn Rand's Anthem. I'm really curious to dig into this one.
It's a fascinating choice. Anthem packs so much into such a short, kind of bleak world, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely dystopian. I mean, just the premise alone, right? A society where even saying "I" is forbidden.
Right. Like right off the bat, that throws you into this really unsettling reality. It's like, how do you even function as a person without that basic concept of self?
That's what's so brilliant about it, I think. Even the protagonist's name, Equality 72521. I mean,
Right. It's like individuality is just completely erased right from the start.
and that's the core of the conflict, right? That clash between individual identity and this enforced collectivism.
It goes even deeper than that though, right? It's not just like saying we instead of I. Rand she's really exploring how language itself can be this tool of control, you know.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like in an anthem, by taking away the word I, it doesn't just change how people talk. It like warps their ability to even think about individual desires, or even to even think about having aspirations. You know what I mean?
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
Like if you can't express something in words, does that mean you can't even think it? Is that what she's getting at?
It's definitely an unsettling idea that she's playing with, and it has echoes of other dystopian literature,
Yeah,
right?
like 1984 New
Exactly.
Times.
That whole idea of controlling language to control thought. But Rand's focus is really on how this impacts like the very essence of self, right?
Okay, so how does our protagonist, stuck in this world of how does he even start to break free?
Right.
The light bulb scene. That always stood out to me.
Yeah.
This becomes such an iconic symbol.
It's a pivotal moment for sure. So remember, Equality 72521, he rediscovers electricity in secret, which is a direct violation of the society's rules, right? But it's more than just that. It's like it represents this triumph of reason over ignorance, you know? Like he's not supposed to be pursuing knowledge, but he does it anyway.
Yeah, so it's not just about being clever or inventive. It's like he's daring to think differently.
Exactly.
To go after knowledge even though it's forbidden.
And this is where it ties into Rand's concept of egoism.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, not egotism, which is like being selfish,
Yeah.
but egoism, the idea that one's own life and happiness is the ultimate moral purpose.
Okay, hold on. Slow down for a second.
Yeah.
So Equality 72521, him creating this light. Is that him acting in his own self-interest?
Exactly. It is, but ultimately it also benefits everyone, right?
Okay, I'm following you. But wasn't Rand like super critical of altruism? I don't quite get how egoism in Anthem leads to something positive.
That's a really common misconception, honestly.
Well, is it?
It is. What Rand was arguing was that true altruism, like forced self-sacrifice, that actually destroys the individual's ability to create. Like they can't actually contribute meaningfully, right? So in Anthem, the society demands this selflessness.
Right.
But the result is, everything's stagnant, nothing's really happening.
Yeah.
It's Equality 72521's egoism, it's his pursuit of his own values that actually sparks progress.
So his journey from we to I is it also a journey from this forced altruism to like a healthier form of egoism?
You could absolutely say that. Like as he rediscovers being an individual, he also rediscovers the joy of creating, of achieving something for himself, which kind of ironically ends up benefiting society in the long run.
Huh. Okay, that's interesting. But how does this all connect to the book's portrayal of technology? The electricity, the light bulb, that's a big deal.
Wait. Oh, absolutely. Technology for Rand, it's like an extension of human reason.
Yeah.
It's a tool for individuals to shape their world, But in Anthem, the society, they feel technology because it represents individual power. They want to cling to the old ways, even if it means stifling progress.
Right.
So Equality 72521, rediscovering electricity, it's like a rebellion on multiple levels, He's not just breaking the rules, he's challenging this whole worldview of the society. Yeah, it's a turning point for sure. Up until now, he's trying to fit in, to be a good little collectivist, but the light bulb is like a literal and symbolic illumination.
I like that.
It's like this break from that mentality.
But he doesn't do it totally alone, does he? There's Liberty 53000. She plays a big part in all this.
Oh, yeah. Liberty 53000. She's the one he later renames the Golden One, right?
Yeah, right.
She's like this embodiment of freedom and independence in the society that's trying to crush both.
In their relationship, I mean, even for us today, it's unconventional.
Oh, for sure.
How does that reflect Rand's philosophy? Is it just a plot device, or is there something deeper going on?
It's definitely more than just a romantic subplot. It's like
Right.
their relationship, it really embodies this idea that for Rand, true love, it can only exist between people who are already whole on their own.
Yeah.
Independent. Like, it's not about needing someone to complete you. It's about choosing someone who, like, complements your strength.
Yeah.
And your individuality.
So they're not drawn to each other out of like neediness or codependence. It's more like they see each other's independent spirits, and that's what's attractive.
Exactly. And you notice how their relationship, like, develops alongside Equality 72521's growing awareness of himself. Like, as he breaks free from that collectivist mindset, he's able to have this deeper, more authentic connection with Liberty 53000.
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel there. But I can't ignore the fact that Rand's portrayal of their relationship has also, been kind of controversial, right?
Right.
Like some critics say it reinforces these traditional gender roles, with Liberty 53000 being kind of subservient.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. Rand's views on gender roles were, they were complicated, to say the least. She definitely championed female strength and independence.
Right.
But she also believed in certain inherent differences between men and women, and that comes through in Anthem.
Seems like a whole other conversation, maybe for another deep dive.
Right.
But for now, let's get back to Equality 72521. So he eventually escapes this whole oppressive society, right? What's the turning point? What makes him finally break free?
It's when he presents the light bulb to the World Council of Scholars.
Oh, okay.
And he thinks they're going to praise him, he thinks, oh, this is going to benefit everyone.
Yeah.
But instead, they're horrified.
Oh, wow.
They see it as this huge threat to their control.
Right, because it's like individual achievement, right? It goes against everything they stand for.
Exactly. And that's when Equality 72521, he gets his first real taste of what it means to defy the collective. He's ostracized, threatened, and eventually forced to run away into the uncharted forest, which is, portrayed as this dangerous, unknown place.
Yeah. But at the same time, the forest also represents freedom, right? It's like, It's the only place where he can actually exist without all those constraints.
Exactly. It's where he can be himself. And it's where he makes this really radical discovery.
Okay, what's that?
He finds this abandoned house from the unmentionable times, and it's filled with books and knowledge.
Ooh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. All this stuff that had been forbidden by the society.
Talk about symbolism. It's like he's not just rediscovering himself, he's rediscovering like a whole lost history.
And it's through those books that he finally encounters the word I.
Whoa. I bet that was powerful.
Right. It's this moment of pure liberation.
He's reclaiming his identity.
Yeah. Right. He's like, finally, he's able to think of himself as an individual. But what about Liberty 53000? What happens to her?
Yeah, does she just stay behind in that soul-crushing society?
She doesn't. She follows him, chooses to embrace freedom with him. Their reunion in the forest, it's like super symbolic, It's like this power of shared values and that commitment to individual liberty.
It's a beautiful scene, but it kind of makes you wonder, like, can they really build something new in this world that's so hostile to individualism?
That's the big question Rand leaves us with. Anthem is hopeful. It shows how strong the human spirit can be, even in the face of oppression. But it also acknowledges the challenges of actually building something new based on these radically different values.
So it's not like a happily ever after ending. It's more like a call to action.
Right. It's like she's challenging us, the readers, to think about how to foster individualism in our own world.
And that makes you think about all the ways that we conform, even in societies that are supposedly free.
Right. The pressure to fit in, it's everywhere.
Everywhere. Exactly. That's why a book like Anthem is still so relevant, right? It reminds us that the fight for individual freedom, it's not over. It's something we have to constantly be working towards, both within ourselves and the world around us.
And it can be a tough fight, but Anthem shows us that it's possible to break free from these oppressive systems, even when they seem all powerful.
Yeah, it's a powerful message. I mean, knowing that even in a world where I is forbidden, there's still hope. It's really inspiring.
And that's the heart of Rand's philosophy. It's all about individual power, you know, to shape your own destiny, to overcome any obstacle, and to create a better future.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, right?
Yeah.
We talked about how individualism is suppressed, the power of language, the symbolism with the light and the technology, the whole unconventional love story.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately that, the human spirit can triumph.
And we've barely scratched the surface. Anthem is the kind of book you can read multiple times.
Yes.
And each time you get something new from it.
That's what I love about these deep dives,
Yeah.
They really make you think, and they always leave you with new questions. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about the book's controversial element.
Oh, right. Rand's philosophy, especially that whole idea of egoism, it's been really divisive, you know? Some people argue that it's too selfish, that it ignores social responsibility.
But then we see in Anthem how this forced altruism can be just as destructive.
Yeah.
It squashes creativity and progress. It seems like the key is finding the right balance.
Exactly. And that's where the real discussion starts. Rand's work, love it or hate it, it forces us to confront these big questions, like about human nature, the role of society, and how to balance individual freedom with the needs of the collective.
And that's a debate that's super relevant today. Like we're dealing with these same issues all the time.
And that's why Anthem, even with its flaws, even with the things people might disagree with, it still speaks to people today. It sparks debates, it challenges how we think about things, and it pushes us to really think about what it means to be an individual in this crazy world we live in.
It's a book that's definitely going to stick with me. I kind of want to go back and reread it now, see what else jumps out at me.
You should, and pay attention to how she uses language. Like, how does she structure her sentences? How does she use symbols and metaphors to create this world that's both familiar and really unsettling at the same time?
That's a good point. It's not just what she's saying, it's how she's saying it.
Exactly. And if you pay attention to that, you get this whole other level of appreciation for how complex her ideas are and how powerful her message is.
I'm so glad we did this deep dive. I feel like I have a way better understanding of Anthem now.
It's been great talking about it with you. Hopefully our listeners will, they'll be inspired to check out the book themselves and maybe even have some of their own philosophical debates.
And maybe have some of those light bulb moments.
Right. We should never stop learning and exploring new ideas.
So as we wrap up this deep dives into Anthem, I'm left with this question, just bouncing around in my head. So if language shapes thought, like how it works in Anthem, how much does the language we use today actually influence how we see ourselves?
Yeah.
And how we see society?
Whoa, that's a question that deserves its own deep dive, for sure. Think about it. The terms we throw around all the time, like social responsibility, the common good.
Yep.
Did those always actually benefit the individual? Or is there like this subtle pressure to conform baked into how we even talk about our place in the world?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. It's like Anthem gives you this whole new way of looking at even everyday language. Like what we might think are just harmless phrases. Maybe they're echoing those collectivist ideas. Maybe they're even like limiting our potential without us even realizing it.
It makes you think, right?
It does. And
And on the flip side, think about how powerful it can be to reclaim certain words.
oh, yeah.
When Equality 72521, when he rediscovers I, it's not just grammar, it's like a total act of rebellion. He's asserting his right to exist as a separate thinking person.
Makes me wonder about like the whole evolution of language. Do you think Rand, did she believe we could like reprogram ourselves just by changing the words we use?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. I don't think Rand ever laid out like a specific linguistic program or anything, but she was a big believer in clear thinking and precise language. And remember, in Anthem, the restrictions on language, they're a tool of oppression.
Yeah.
But in our world, we have more freedom, right? So the question is, are we using that freedom to think clearly, independently, or are we just letting ourselves be swayed by slogans and empty rhetoric?
So it's not about banning certain words. It's about being more aware of how the language we use and the language used around us, how it might be shaping our thoughts and even our actions.
Exactly. That's much more nuanced, and it's more in line with Rand's emphasis on individual responsibility. We can't control what everyone says, but we can choose to be more precise, more deliberate with how we express ourselves, and with the ideas we choose to embrace.
This whole deep dive has really given me a lot to think about Anthem, but also, just my own use of language. Powerful stuff.
It really is. It's amazing how fiction can make us reflect on these big philosophical questions. Even decades later, Anthem is still making us examine our values, our ideas about society, and even the way we communicate our understanding of the world.
It's not just a story, it's like a call to action.
Yeah.
To look at our own world with a more critical eye. To all our listeners out there, if you haven't read Anthem, I highly recommend it. You might be surprised how relevant it feels, even today.
And who knows, maybe it'll spark a revolution in your own thinking. Encourage you to rediscover the power of I and all that it stands for.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep those light bulbs shining bright.